introduce Brent Clark, who is the CEO and founder of energy consultancy Wattblock. Over the past 5 years, Brent has assisted apartment buildings housing over 50,000 residents with energy efficiency, renewable energy and electric vehicle charging. Welcome, Brent. And to kick off, can you tell us a bit more about the work you've been doing with Wattblock to demystify EV charging in apartments?
Sure, Anthony, and thanks for inviting us along today. It's going to be a great session. So at Wattblock, we've been running electric vehicle surveys just like this for apartment buildings, and we've run them for about 140 different apartment blocks from Melbourne to Cairns. And we've got some fascinating facts which we're going to go through the course of this webinar. So originally, we had a project with City of Sydney funding, and it was conducted in association with some partners, Tesla and AGL. And the scope of this project was to try and work out the best way to get residential strata schemes, apartment blocks, prepared and road mapping their future for charging electric vehicles. And we had a phenomenal response with over 80 apartment buildings from the City of Sydney registering their interest in the project. We conducted surveys with over 700 individuals, and we went out for deep dives and got our hands dirty in 20 of those apartment blocks. These are some of the participating strata schemes. And as you can see, definitely a lot of premium buildings here, some high rise. Keep in mind, this was prior to the introduction of the more cost-effective EVs that have been coming into the market in the last couple of months. Now, some key findings. Okay, this is strata, and nobody likes anyone to get anything for free. So we found that 79% of people wanted a user-pays charging system inside their apartment block, whoever was charging an electric vehicle. Now, the stat that really interested us was 78% of people were in favour of installing charging systems right now. And when it came to where should we put these charging systems, should they be in a visitor car parking spot or in an individual car owner's lot, 61% expressed their preference for charging in their own car parking space. Now, only 11% of people knew the location of the nearest public charging station, but with the great work that the Tri-Councils are doing, we're sure that that figure is going to increase very rapidly. So some key considerations for strata going down the path of installing electric vehicle charging. Well, one of the things that we came across was the age and compliance of existing main switchboards. There are a lot of analogue meters out there, ceramic fuses, and would we say wooden backboard switchboards in the older blocks. Now, these are no longer compliant to AS3000 standard. Obviously, everyone's heard of the capacity limitations for charging electric vehicles, but more important was the actual distribution board and the capacity of that that's located closest to the car park area. And when it came to looking at those distribution boards, there are obviously some limitations just in the number of free slots. These distribution boards are used for air conditioning, car park lighting, ventilation, etc. Another challenge is the physical separation of the car space where an owner wants to charge from the nearest distribution board, and the existence or non-existence of cable trays throughout the car park areas. And Tim will talk more about this later. Now, the user pays considerations are absolutely paramount in strata. And early on, we were looking at, can a user charge off their own electricity meter, or can they be sub-metered off the common area meter? And there are a lot of advantages to going down the latter path and having the user sub-metered off the common area, as opposed to allowing them to connect to their own apartment meters. Now, the next area that created a lot of contention was the visitor car parking charging versus charging in the individual car spaces of the lot owners. Well, we found something else that really you should check with your local council. And in some areas where it might be leviable parking, installing a electric vehicle charge station in a visitor car parking spot can be considered a change of use, and it may even trigger a state land tax. And finally, bylaws. So this is Strata, and we've gone through many iterations of these bylaws now. Bylaws for charging in individual lot owner spaces, bylaws for charging in visitor car parking spaces, end use agreements where you estimate the amount of electricity that's going to be consumed for the year and maybe pay that in advance to your strata committee, more advanced payment solutions, and charging speed. You know, in the interests of the collective good in an apartment building, can someone who's just purchased a brand new Tesla be convinced to install a 16 amp charger and leave capacity for the future electric vehicle owners that are coming into the building? And the bylaws also have to cover things such as not only the upfront installation, but if that person sells their apartment, uninstallation of the charge station, or if it can't be uninstalled, some strata schemes, the owner's corporation is going to take ownership of the charge station after the lot owner sells. So we've got a couple of pictures. Here you can see visitor parking is particularly scarce in the CBDs of Australian cities. And also, it's policed. There have too many instances in Strata of people hogging the visitor car parking spots. And EV charging is just one more thing that adds contention. Now, this is a very interesting photo. There's a couple of things going on here. This is unbilled charging of a hybrid EV. Perhaps we'll see a trip hazard with an extension lead running across the main driveway where other cars are driving in and out of the basement car park. And also a danger here. This particular basement car park has a history of being flooded. So this is absolutely not the ideal form of charging in our apartment blocks. We mentioned earlier some switchboards needing to be upgraded. Let's say not much love and care has been given to these switchboards in our strata buildings over the past 30, 40 years. Analog meters, and at some point these old buildings may even have to get a new grid link and expand the capacity from the local substation. Now, what could be possible is electric vehicle charging in car share spaces in strata. And here's an example of a strata scheme from Erskineville with a couple of car share spots inside it. Now, we've got some analytics here from Wattblock's Ross McIntyre. And what we've done is we've shown the load of the common areas of an apartment building, which is in grey at the bottom, and then going through 24 hours, starting from midnight and going to midnight, we can see the impact in a theoretical building where every owner had an electric vehicle charging system, but they were using a smart charging system, one that's load balanced and networked and coordinated. Now, the analytics on the next slide is the same building, except we'll show you what would happen with unmanaged charging without that power management capability. Here you can see peak demand problems. And as we know, in residential strata, peak demand, capacity charges are some of the things that have been driving up our energy bills. So hopefully this has given a good intro into what we've discovered in our journey through these 140 apartment blocks who are some of the first movers to get ready for electric vehicle charging. And I'm now going to hand over to Tim, and he's going to take us a little bit deeper.